Hello, welcome to this very special edition of Hampshire Fans Podcast. We're celebrating the Royal London One Day Cup victory on Saturday just gone at Lord's. And with me to talk about that fantastic day in Hampshire's season, in Hampshire's history, is Phil Webb. Good evening, Phil.
Good evening, Ian. Yeah, celebrations just about cooling off now. If only the weather was slightly. Yeah, fabulous. It's taken me a few days to actually think about how great it was as a day and as an experience, but hopefully we can get across some of that in this podcast.
I mean, it was an absolutely top draw day. The weather was perfect. We were on our way nice and early, and it was just a wonderful feeling. Cup final day at Lord's. I was brought up on Hampshire victories and cup finals at Lord's in the late 80s, early 90s, and whilst finals day T20 has overtaken it, it's still something really special about being at a Lord's final, especially on such a beautiful summer's day.
Yeah, for me, I'm a bit late to the Hampshire game. I mean, I only really started picking up following Hampshire when I moved here, but there was a feeling, even on the I was on the 908 train up from Southampton Airport, and you kind of start looking around the other people around you, like, yeah, you're going to the game, yeah, you're going, and there's just that kind of buzz and atmosphere, old boys there, and they've got their newspapers with them and stuff. I was like, yes, game day. I feel it. It's coming home. Not in the whole football sense, but there was, for me, right from the start. I mean, to be honest, I was fortunate to get the train. I only managed to get it because somebody got their bags nicked at the airport, and it was delayed by about 5 minutes. So I felt like from that moment onwards, jumping on that train, everything was going to go my way.
Yeah, I mean, I was similar. I mean, I'd get the train in from Berkshire, and we happened to sit opposite a Hampshire fan originally from Bournemouth who travelled from Worcester. And again, it was just nice to have that little 20-minute chat on the way to the ground about how it was going to go. It was just really building the excitement of the day.
You look at the attendance as well. I mean, it was over 20-something thousand, which I think it said was one of the best attended Lord's finals over the last 4 or 5 seasons as well.
Certainly hope to think with two localish sides, that Hampshire into London's not that far, and of course Kent isn't that far away either, plus the beautiful weather. And as people say that you give people a nice day, then they're quite keen to go and watch cricket on those days.
Yeah, weren't you hidden away in the underground at the stadium though?
Yeah, well, we went to the lower ground stand, myself, my wife, and good friend in East, and so we had basically the best of both worlds, where we had the bright sunshine in the morning through early afternoon, and then the shade came across about 4:30, and that was probably just about when we needed it. So we had a superb view of the game, sort of about third man, say if they were bowling from the pavilion end to the right hander, and spectacular view.
Me and Tim didn't have quite so much luck because I was a little bit late on the ticket buying game, so we were absolutely scorching on top of the thing, and I've burnt in places I didn't know I could, from my armpits to my kneecaps, which is a fool's game really. But we were next to quite a good. I think Rob Bransco's son was in just along the seats next to us, and a few ex or current Hampshire employees as well. So they're quite good for the atmosphere.
Yeah, we had, I think, the majority of people around us were Hampshire fans, with a smattering of Kent fans, and everyone had a good day. So much so, at the end of the game, a few people from behind us attempted to invade the pitch, including one woman that actually made it to the middle.
I was trying to work out if she was one related to one of the players, or was she just a very enthusiastic fan?
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, if you know who that is, or if you're even listening, then please let us know, because we'd love to find out more about what happened afterwards, because That was
it could be
just
in for...
I'm still chuckling at that now.
Yeah,
I just randomly think to myself about that every so often. Just think, wow, what an ending. But we'll talk more about the game now. So,
well,
Kent
the first
won
thing I was going to ask you about, Ian, sorry, was thinking about the team selection. Well, in terms of Mason Crane was injured of sorts, or he's got a recurrence of his kind of back spasm. I was kind of surprised to see him in the team. He bowled 4 overs in the week for second 11 kind of T20 game, and was in for Reece Topley, which, given his form for the England Lions, was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, it was very much so. But I guess it was just the thing of Hampshire had played their best cricket in the knockout or in this competition when they'd had 2 spinners in the team. And I think what happened with Mason Crane is I think they were determined to play him at absolutely any cost, in that he's had one of those pain-killing injections which is enabled to numb the pain to get you through the game, and he's not actually going to feature at all for the rest of the season. And I'm not sure how sensible that was. Fair enough, Hampshire certainly got away with it. We won the brilliant run out, and his second spell of bowling was decent enough. But I think we possibly got away with that one. And I'm not sure how clever that perhaps is. It's not something I'd recommend.
No, I mean, long-term damage. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I wouldn't be able to make these kind of judgments. You kind of think, well, you don't want to end up being one of those kind of players who is kind of limping from game to game or injury to injury and just having to kind of scrape through. Obviously, if he's out for the rest of the season now, that's going to give him the off season and however much longer he needs to recover. But in terms of spin bowling, you're thinking stress fracture of the back. It's not. I don't see it as the same kind of the injuries that you kind of almost expect the fast bowlers to pick up because of what they're putting their bodies through in terms of the pressures and force and that kind of thing. I thought the when they named their squad, I thought we might be more inclined to go for six bowlers, actually, given that kind of injury risk. So the fact that Topley wasn't in there at all was a bit surprising. I thought, or maybe where Allsop's been keeping a bit in the Championship, maybe we wouldn't see McManus, or maybe they'd think, well, we'll keep McManus keeping, and maybe Weatherly might have missed out alongside Jimmy Adams. So, because I don't necessarily see Weatherly as the kind of expansive one-day player that maybe the one-day game is heading towards. I think he's obviously a talented lad, picked up his first Championship century, but he's the kind of guy that will probably push it around for 1s and 2s rather than necessarily go big and brutal the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a few like that. I mean, I was reading the Evening Standard on the way home on Friday night, and that was where they broke the news that Crane had had the injection and would play. So my sort of thoughts on the way to the game was it was kind of Allsop or Adams. I thought they would go with Adams because of his experience, but they went Allsop. And then I thought, one of Topley or Wood would miss out. But it was, an almost impossible call. You'd want to get them all in, really, but of course only 11 can play.
Yeah, it's a shame you can't play with 13. The other person, obviously, we feel sorry for to some extent is Brad Taylor, because he'd obviously played such a pretty large role in getting us to the final there, and obviously through injury missing out. It's a real shame. Ian, I caught you in the middle of talking about the toss. Do you want to carry on?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it was what you call a good toss to lose, wasn't it? That it made Sam Billings insert us, and I was very pleased to find out that he'd asked us to bat, because I think runs on the board is still very important in knockout and pressured games. Of course, chasing has become easier in the modern era, but a good old Lord's final, I think, still about runs on the board.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that we were asked to bat, because it almost seems like a good pitch to bat on. The other consideration, and again, it's not through personal experience knowing this, but the amount of time that the fielders are spending in that heat, if you're fielding first, like 50 overs, in that, I was burning and I was wearing pretty much nothing. But to be out there for 50 overs doing something athletic, how does that kind of end up affecting their mindset if they're feeling a little bit dehydrated, a little bit drained, and they're having to chase the ball around? On top of what it turned out was, scoreboard pressure. Because I didn't realise this at the time, but 330 is the highest ever, Lord's final target that had been set. And I think, well, actually, even given that in the one-day game, modern one-day game at least, chasing teams seem to have far better chances of winning these days. Yeah, definitely take it.
I think there's two things there that possibly that in theory, because it was such a nice day, Lords, you generally get very good batting pitches, is perhaps they were thinking it would stay the same all day, that they would know what they needed to do, and that perhaps they would be able to take advantage of early morning nerves. There was obviously no early morning dew out or anything like that. It was a good morning to go and bat, but they thought perhaps they could get into Hampshire early. But of course, Alsop and Russo, 132 for the first wicket is, you couldn't have a better start than that.
Yeah, one stat I picked up on was that Tom Alsop, Hampshire's youngest Lord's final half centurion, which passes Sean Irvine's one from 2005, when he was 22 and 271 days. There you go. That's a little stat for you. But it was interesting how actually Alsop was a little bit more expansive than Brousseau was. I think you kind of, what you expect from Riley is the kind of the big hitting thing, but he was a bit steadier. But as a first wicket stand, 136. I think also probably might have been a little bit frustrated with himself in the end, because I think 100 was probably there for him to take as well. But doesn't take away from what is an excellent performance.
Two things particularly impressed me. That Matt Henry and Harry Podmore up front for Kent were very lively, and I think the first 8 overs probably they were only going at about 4.5 and over, but they changed the bowling. Kent put Callum Haggett on, and Tom Alsop took a liking to him, taking 18 off that over, and that sort of really got Hampshire going. And it was kind of from there that Kent found it very difficult until probably the 40-odd over to really get back into any sort of control again. I think 100 was there for the taking, but he did very well. I thought Jimmy Adams would play, so Tom Alsop must have found out at some stage that he'd been given the opportunity, and he's taken it. That's fantastic.
Yeah, the two of them took Callum Haggett out of the attack, because he was only so it was Kent's first change, and he went for 28, I think, off his 2 overs, and we didn't see him again until literally the 50th over of the game. And I think obviously Kent had the 6th bowling option, but to force out one of their probably preferred frontline seamers out of the attack was a big advantage to us at that point.
It certainly was. It was funny that Joe Denley was their basically 6th option, and he ends up taking 4 for 57. But so he certainly did his job in filling in as a 6th bowler. But all credit to Tom Alsop for doing that. Riley Russo, yeah, we've both been critical of him this season, but I think we can put that to bed now. He's been fantastic for about the last 6 weeks. He's growing into English cricket. He's possibly helped by the better weather, the better pitches we've had, but that's what we're playing in at the minute, and he's cashing in.
Yeah, on the back of his first championship century, he's in some form. I think. Well, I'm not going to retract all kind of previous concern about his performances, because I think you're going to have to accept him for like who he is and how he plays. Like he's a big game player, but you know that sometimes he's going to hit and sometimes he's going to miss. I'm not going to say he's as kind of polarized as Afridi, to that extent, but there's that element of him that when he pulls it off, he's going to be fantastic.
But I think we're potentially getting to the stage where he is going to be more reliable. That you've got the contrast of a championship 100 in the week, the first of many, fingers crossed, followed up again by another 100 in a one-day game. That hopefully we'll see that consistency rather than a decent score thinking, he's turned the corner, and then another run of low scores. Hopefully, as the T20 starts now, that's going to be, perfectly suited to him, that he's going to make the most of this great form.
There's, I guess, maybe in the model of Neil Mackenzie, that's what we're after, right? Long term from him. I think testament to him and his character as well is that we haven't really talked about the fact that he was missing his teeth.
Very true. Very true.
To come from, a game where that has got to put a dent in your, I don't know, in your confidence is probably the wrong thing, but you look at how some players, like even Stuart Broad, when he got hit in the head or helmet quite a few times, how that actually affects your kind of psyche and your mindset when you're batting. There's something about an injury that can potentially mentally kind of set you back a bit, and that didn't affect him. And I read somewhere that he was stuck in a lift for 80 minutes as well. Did you see that?
Yes, I think Kevin James was interviewing after the game, and he mentioned about how he was worried he wouldn't get out and so on and so on. So just another quirky thing that again it would be. Remember when Riley Russo got stuck in the lift and then scored 100, man of the match next day. We'll move on a bit.
We'll have to try and do that to him at the Hilton next game or something.
So 132 before the first wicket fell. James Vince came out. He only made 23, but he still shared in a stand of 71 with Russo before falling to Imran Quayum, the Kent spinner. But again, he played his part. I mean, James Vince is in great form too, but he's not always going to score big. But he was being, again, the perfect foil for Riley Russo, I think.
Yeah, he was doing... It felt like he was doing the right things at the right time. I don't know if Trevor Bayliss was in the crowd somewhere, so I know he was going out to impress in that kind of respect. And it was just at the point in our innings where I think it was around the 30th over, where that if you do your traditional maths of double the score that you've got at 30, that you've got to start upping the ante a little bit. And I don't think he went too early in any sense. I think it was just unfortunate he ends up picking, slightly mistiming it and picking out the man.
I mean, absolutely.
The attacking attempt was right.
I mean, also the one thing that normally James Vince has the advantage of is that he does come in a lot earlier, but because of the superb opening partnership, he was coming out to bat later than he does. So perhaps didn't get the chance to build as long an innings, but no criticism of him at all. Not that we would. And next, of course, was the controversial moment where I think the Kent fans let themselves down very badly. people might say, oh, that was just day trippers or idiots, but they were there supporting Kent. And to boo Sam North East, I thought was very poor indeed.
Yeah, just regardless of what's gone on, I don't think, I don't think Sam North East has done anything particularly badly. I think, he had obviously some sort of falling out with the club before he left, of sorts, but aspirations for test performances or England call-ups or things like that, I think he was entirely justified in being out there. And in terms of, you see on the banners flashing up throughout the game, hashtag Spirit of Cricket, and you think, well, realistically, it's not that. The one thing I love about going to cricket matches is it's not that same atmosphere that you get at football. And that kind of soured it, really. Not the whole day, but just as a memory out there. And I think the best thing that Sam North East did at the end of the day was answer that with an unbeaten 75.
That's right. I mean, he obviously had to wait a long time to come out to bat. He didn't come to the wickets until Hampshire had already got 193 on the board, 75 not out. Wickets were falling around him as the innings went on, and he held it steady, didn't he? That everybody after him was just single figures. I mean, that was because they were trying to push the score on, but he was basically the main reason for getting Hampshire up to 330, which I know everyone thought at one stage we were going to get more like 360, 370, but in trying to do that, we could have ended up only getting 280, 290. So it can't be underestimated how valuable his innings was.
Yeah, it's interesting you say it, because certainly at the time in the ground, so we were 270 for two before that third wicket went down, and I was genuinely thinking, I think 360's on, which would have been kind of phenomenal. So when we were 30 or so short, I was like, feeling a little bit deflated at that point, which is daft really when you're sticking on a record score, and after witnessing some really high quality batting, but we just got at 6.5 pretty much consistently from 15 overs on. So I was like, all right, when's the point where we're really going to kick on? When's that final absolute hurrah from the tail end? And it never quite came, because they just Denley and a couple of others just chipping away at the end. But actually, I don't think there was a sense of disappointment. I think it was, maybe that's just me and Tim kind of talking each other down. It's like, oh, it's not enough. It's not enough. I could have stuck more on. But yeah.
Well, I think the feeling with myself and wife Claire, we were disappointed that they didn't get the 360 that they threatened, but we felt 330 was enough. We just felt that if we'd got 360, we were definitely safe.
Yeah.
I think I tweeted out at halfway, was 330 enough? Some people made some good points, saying that they really fancied Dawson and Crane to out-bowl Denley and Khayyam. If they did that, then Hampshire would win the game. And I think it's very fair. So I was fairly happy halfway.
Yeah, it just reminded me of the Kent stats, which from their spin combination. So from Khayyam and Denley's overs, picked up 6 wickets for 117, whereas the seam had gone for 2 wickets for 211. And actually, like you said, if we didn't know at that point what Crane was going to bowl like, because the outcome wasn't actually perhaps as effective as we would have liked. But yeah, you'd back England's Liam Dawson and England's Mason Crane against, maybe Denley's been sidelined over the last few years and has had England recognition, and Khayyam's obviously kind of coming up, but you think actually a bit more pedigree for the Hampshire spinners.
Yeah, and so Kent started well in their chase, and yeah, we weren't particularly expensive to start with, but you were sort of like, it's a good pitch still. Where is this first Kent wicket going to come from? And wow, well, spectacular fashion it came from, and who else but Gareth Berg to get things rolling.
I'm going to have to confess, I didn't see it because I was in the burger queue at this point.
Okay, well, I'll tell the listeners more about it.
Had it on the big screen, but Tim and I negotiated that around 10 overs, it's going to be still early days. Nothing going to be particularly expansive going on. I'll do the food run. Yeah, terrible mistake. But anyway, carry on.
So I think it was sort of pushed out to mid-off. Was it extra cover? Maybe it's the other side. And Coon, who's had a fantastic campaign for Kent, won them the semi-final, set off for a single, which Gareth Berg basically, I think, is kind of John T. Rhodes style, with the famous picture of him clattering the stumps. Of course, he threw the ball rather than crashed into the stumps. But anyway, Gareth Berg direct hits, and of course on his dive after he's released the ball, collides with Coon. But I think he knew at that point that it was gone. And I think, again, from where we were sitting, we had a pretty good view of that. And our gut feeling was that Coon was going to be on his way. And eventually, when he picked himself up from underneath Bergie, he was heading towards the dressing room. And I think that just got everyone up and excited, thinking, Danger Man's gone.
Those little kind of breakthroughs. It's just that little boost. It's starting to not uncertainty creeping in, but where they've made a relatively steady start and where they know the chase that they've got to, take on and the rate they've got to go at. You think, well, you're going to win this by taking wickets and keeping the run rate down. And a man that scored nearly 700 runs, I think, in the competition. Absolutely vital, even if I didn't see it.
I mean, the Kent batting lineup, to be fair, they're a decent team. They got to the final, for goodness sake. It's full of danger men, but he was probably the most prized wicket, I think, based on his form in the tournament so far. That brought out Joe Denley, who's particularly explosive. He's been playing in T20 competitions all around the world and is probably playing better than when he played for England, 10 years ago?
Yeah, must be at least that. Yeah, he popped up in the Big Bash, on the back of some of his form from the last season as well. I think the great thing that kind of happened here was Liam Dawson's bowling starting just to keep them in check, because I think his first 6 overs had only gone for about 20, and actually that kind of pressure just building and building and building. Although actually, sorry, I've overlooked the second wicket as well, which obviously came from Berg, and really good catch from James Ince, I thought, coming in.
Yeah, was it? They tried to sort of hit him back over his head, and James Vince, was it a sort of knee slide to take the catch down the mid off type thing. And again, that was good to get rid of Joe Denley so early, 83 for 2. At that point, basically, Berg and Dawson were bowling really well together, putting the pressure on, squeezing the run rate. And Liam Dawson actually only played in the semi-final, and I think one group game because of injury, but was very impressive in the semi-final, I thought, and he's been in the wickets for the England Lions. So his bowling, he's always been a good one-day bowler, hasn't he? But he's gone to another level, I feel, this year.
Yeah, I think he's got to the point where he knows his game, and I think that's something they've said on. It might have been Don Topley or Kevin on Radio Solent about. He knows what he needs to do, and he just does it. And there's something exact about how he carries out his plans, and in each of those spells. Yeah, it was just Sean Dixon, I think, for Kent was really struggling with it, which ended up putting Bell Drummond under a bit of pressure as well. It didn't. We had a bit. The problem was. I shouldn't be picking out problems. We've just won the competition. But when Crane and Dawson are on together, the pressure that Dawes was building up at one end, I think he maiden or single, and then there was just a release with Crane at the other end because he was just throwing down a couple of full tosses and a couple of long hops. So much so, I think Vince, hauled him off after about 3 overs and took the ball himself, which I think the game was kind of positioned, and the fact that we didn't necessarily have a 6 option, him taking himself on, it's a brave call, given that he's the star man that we've injected to get him into play. But good captaincy needs those kind of decisions.
It was that point where we were sort of, very worried about the decision to play Crane, that it was potentially backfiring because, again, early in the tournament, when Crane bowled so well with Brad Taylor, there were very few bad balls from Mason Crane. And the way he bowled his first 3 overs, unfortunately, showed somebody who wasn't in the rhythm of bowling. It was the right thing to do by James Vince to take him out of the attack and see if he could slip in a few overs of himself, and which he managed actually, I think, for 2.5 overs, and then his last couple of balls went for 10. But by then, because Dawson was doing such a good job from the pavilion end, he was able to sort of rotate the other bowlers a bit and then bring back Crane a little bit later for another 4 overs, of which he bowled much better in those 4 overs. And of course, in that time, Mason Crane gets the most spectacular run out I've ever seen live. Were you in the ground for that one?
I was there for that one. But where we were, his actual pick up and throw was slightly obscured from where I was, or I wasn't concentrating hard enough. So I saw the end result, and I saw the kind of the passion and the running around and the bails flying off. But I think the angle that you were at probably gave you a slightly better perspective than mine.
It was absolutely perfect angle to see it, in that the ball's basically travelling directly towards us. Mason Crane is fielding again just in front of us. He runs towards the ball, picks up, releases, and we just see the ball angling in and just tailing in and hitting the stumps from pretty much 10 yards inside the boundary, and it was just fantastic. That was a real sort of lose yourself moment in the stands, of me hugging Ian and hugging my wife, and Ian hugging my wife, and so on and so on. It was just absolutely superb. I was just like, wow, that it doesn't matter if he gets smashed a bit more, then he's justified his place. Although, we've already talked about, how sensible really was it, but we've got away with it, and wow, what a run out.
Well, I think the whole game was full of excellent fielding from us. I think it's not that Kent fielded badly, it's just we were.
I thought Kent.
No, carry on.
I thought Kent were really good in the field, especially in that opening 10 overs, where at Lords, if you beat the man in the square or in the ring, it's 4. That they were very sharp on their fielding to start with and saved quite a lot of runs. But Hampshire's fielding was another level. That there was 4 run-outs in the end of the innings. 2 of those were, what you'd call chances out of nothing.
Yeah, definitely.
The later run-outs were, of course, where they're trying to take risky runs to get people back on strike and things like that. So they were slightly gifted. But you still got to be able to throw down the stumps and execute a decent throw under pressure. And that's what Hampshire did all day. And, they were magnificent.
So the other two runouts, one was a direct hit from Vince, and the other one was some good work from Wood, and Dawson took the stumps off. But yeah, catching as well. I mean, all round catching was great. Lots of difficult chances. A lot of them on the boundary ropes. There were two that went down. I think that's harsh to call it two, because there was one that Russo. It was more of a saving four than a drop catch. I think it was a point quite early on, and then Weatherly had a really tricky one coming in from the deep that he had practically until he hit the deck, and then it kind of spilled out. But at the end of the day, it didn't really cost us, because they were, taking risky singles to get Billings down the other end.
I think in both cases, I think both drops, they added barely any more runs to the total when they eventually did foul. I forget who it was that Russo dropped, but I've got a feeling that whoever it was out shortly after. And the same, I think it was Weatherly with a very hard chance, but ultimately it didn't matter. That Hampshire basically made enough chances to win the cup game as comfortably as they did. Daniel Bell Drummond tried to anchor the innings, good player, but he was undone by dragging on Chris Wood. Chris Wood, what did he get? 9 overs, 1 for 43. Again, that's exceptional figures if you consider what the pitch and the conditions were like.
Yeah, I think all the bowlers, maybe Crane slightly excluded, put in a real good shoot, and that's not to say Crane bowled badly, because his second spell was quite good, and I think had the fact that Vince had bowled 3 himself kind of gave him the option to potentially spread it around again. Probably a bit like England with Rashid sometimes. If we'd really got through to the tail, like if Billings had gone slightly earlier, I think we might have seen Crane on just to kind of bamboozle the tail and really squeeze it out. Didn't go to him in the end. Went to the seam options, and personally, obviously I think it's clear that I love Gareth Berg already, but if it wasn't any clearer, I think it was really fitting that he was the man finishing off at the end, given that it was his innings at Sussex that really kind of kick-started our one-day cup campaign this year.
Well, that's right. I mean, I said on Twitter on Sunday morning, when I was thinking back about the games, for me, there was nobody more appropriate to take that final wicket. Just on the basis of he's had a long, decent career, but hasn't picked up much silverware. So it was great for him to be there on a cup final back at his old ground. He said how special that was. So it was just delighted for him to get himself a wicket, and what he bowled 9 overs, 2 for 43. Again, exceptional figures, I think. Given the circumstances. And we haven't mentioned Dale Steyn. I mean, how unbelievable is this that we've gone through Wood, Berg, Dawson, Crane and James Vince, and we're basically saying Dale Steyn is an afterthought. But
yeah.
That shows how well Hampshire bowled. Dale Steyn, for the record, 9 overs, 1 maiden, 1 for 56. Again, more than acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, it was It was a great day. It was a great day. I didn't stick around too much for the celebrations afterwards, actually, because I was in a lot of trouble with my wife by this point, because my son decided to be particularly ill. I was at the point where I was going to be called home mid-innings, so I've sacrificed a lot to stay here. I had to pick up more than one bunch of flowers from M&S at Waterloo Station on the way home. So to negotiate my return, but cracking day out. I mean, we talked about the lady storming the pitch at the end. I think one of the nicest things actually has been post match in everything that's kind of come out afterwards, seeing some of the photos that people have taken, particularly Dave Vokes's photos, and one was he put up a photo of Liam Dawson, Chris Wood and James Vince from 2012, with their kind of winners' medals, and another picture of obviously the 2018 victory. Exactly the three of them in the same kind of position, and it's just like a kind of something Hampshire about that success and how those three have kind of grown as cricketers and kind of played together. And the extra thing I'm going to add to that is that I saw a photo popped up as well. I'm not sure if it was one of Dave's or somebody else's, of Crane, Weatherly, McManus, Allsop and Taylor together. And how, as much as we get kind of criticised for reaching into the coal pack market slightly, actually the core of the squad that have played in this one-day competition have been Hampshire kind of raised academy products. And we've got that. Yes, Rousseau's played a star innings. Yes, Dale Steyn has come in and Amler at the start. But actually, there's a solid Hampshire core there, and we won it. So.
Yeah, I think to some extent we may have won back some friends in this tournament.
Yeah,
that we regularly had 9 or 10 English qualified players out on the park, and we played good cricket. We're not a abrasive side.
No.
We impressed people, and some people I'd seen on Twitter who'd been quite critical of Hampshire in the past were a bit more warming to Hampshire. So that's nice to see, because I care very much about the reputation of our great club, and it's pleasing to see that people realising that it's not all just signing quick fixes and things like that, that we are trying to develop players for Hampshire and for England.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually at the stage now I'm lost for words just thinking about some of the stuff. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about the day or the experience.
No,
look ahead to what comes next.
Yeah, I mean we'll move on to it. It seems a shame to move on to other stuff, but it was just a wonderful, wonderful cup final. 6 years since our last one. They're still really special days out to me. I love going to Lords, and going to watch Hampshire in a cup final is the greatest pleasure. I enjoy going to watch Hampshire in a cup final more than I enjoy going to watch England play there, because it's the sort of thing that doesn't necessarily happen that often. It's a rare treat. And it's going to be such a shame when it moves to Trent Bridge. I do love Trent Bridge as a ground, but it's just not going to be the same, unfortunately.
Yeah, but if it is the last time that it's there, then we've got the memories.
We have.
But can we make it a cup double, I guess is the next question.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking about that as well, and there's absolutely no reason why not. We've got a good squad. There's far more strengths than weaknesses. I can't think of a particular weakness, really. Maybe we could do with a third spinner, which we don't have at the minute because Brad Taylor's out. But yeah, I quietly fancy us for the T20, and I'm hopeful that we can eventually get a victory up at Edgbaston. It's been too long, and it's about time. I've done some sort of potential thoughts on a first 11 for the T20, which I think Hampshire's first game is this coming Friday.
Yeah, far away.
My gut feel. Yeah, my gut feeling is this is what I've jotted down on paper. I don't know how near or far I'll be. You listeners will probably have your own ideas on who you would play and so on. But I think to some extent the team perhaps picks itself at the minute because of injury situations. So I think we're potentially going to be opening with Riley and Colin Munro, who's going to arrive from New Zealand. James Vince I'd have in at 3. But of course, I mean, he might be worth opening, and you have Russo at 3 or Munro 3. But that's my top 3, not necessarily in that order. Sam Northeast I've had coming in at 4, Allsop 5, Dawson 6, McManus 7, Bergie at 8, Chris Wood at 9. Again, either order, because I've never seen Uraman, the Afghani spinner, bat, and Reece Topley. I think that would be the 11 that I would go with. How does that sound to you?
Yeah, I mean, you hope that it's not going to come down to 10 and 11 anyway, so I don't really care they bat. I think the interesting point, because obviously you said about Vince potentially opening. I mean, he has opened, but that's kind of one of those aspects of, well, if you have 3 people in the top 3 who have opened, if there's an early wicket, it's almost like the game plan doesn't change because you've still got the people with that kind of mindset that come out and play that kind of attacking, take that attacking approach. Yeah, I mean, it could be interesting to see whether you look at the people that weren't in that lineup, and we were discussing this prior to recording about, is Edwards going to play? Well, no, because he's off in Canada at the moment and might be off in the Caribbean or somewhere else as well. Kyle Abbott, maybe just an extended rest and get him focusing on his championship stuff again. Jimmy Adams, I reckon, could be rotated in at some point pending form and injury, but I don't think he's necessarily in the mind of the selectors for the starting kind of role. Taylor injured, Irvine out of favour. The one lad that we saw a bit of last year that I think could feature again maybe is Calvin Dickinson, if and when he's around, although I haven't seen him in any of the second 11 team sheets, so maybe that's I'm not looking closely enough, or he could be injured. Not sure. That might be one to have a look at.
Yeah, I mean, other players involved. Ian Holland, we've got, of course, Asher Hart on the books that we haven't really seen, I think, apart from some university matches and then the Caribbean tour. So there's possible there, but I think we're not exactly down to the bare bones. But I think I'd be very surprised if the 11 that I suggested, I don't get, say, 9 right.
Yeah. The you were saying about the kind of spin option. Obviously, missing Mason Crane's a blow, but obviously we've got Mujib Rahman in, who is a spinner as well. I wonder whether Ollie Rayner's loan deal could feature some T20 stuff. I don't know how he fits into Middlesex's plans, or what the current arrangement is on the loan front.
I don't think he's played very much white ball cricket, and that was, of course, what has led to him signing on loan for Hampshire, that he wasn't used by Middlesex in the 50-over game, where they've struggled in the championship. They've decided to give Ravi Patel a further run. The other thing that could change things was, I noticed Middlesex parted company today with Richard Scott, their coach. So that, of course, could mean that Rayner's recalled and back in their plans. But at the same time, you've got Angus Fraser, Director of Cricket, I think is his title. He might be sort of in temporary charge and be happy for Rayner to continue with us. So I don't know what happened, but I feel like Rayner was pretty much just cover for Dawson away with the Lions and Taylor and Crane's injuries. Maybe a play odd game, but I'd be betting against that.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly excited to see a bit of T20 action, if I'm allowed out of the house at this stage, which is very much up for negotiation still. But yeah, no, hopefully I will be there Friday night. So as ever, if you know who we are, do come and say hello and track us down. And obviously continue to tweet in. Hopefully we'll get some more kind of fresh content out while the match is going on. I mean, we haven't really mentioned the 2 championship games either.
Yeah, we will go on there. I mean, the first championship game was the pink ball game with Yorkshire, ended in a tame draw. not much to note there apart from seeing Gary Balance again get runs against Hampshire, which was very tedious for all concerned. And the fact that you had to stay there to 9:45 at night watching it, it's not much fun. I can understand to a point why we play pink ball cricket, because people might have to play at test match level, but it isn't much fun for players on the whole, and it isn't much fun for spectators. I'd be quite happy if they play pink ball cricket, but maybe till sort of 8 o'clock, 8:30 at a push. But I just don't see a need to play to that late at night. It doesn't do the game any favours, I think.
Yeah, you looked at because I popped along for a couple of I would say the afternoon sessions, or there was the late evening sessions, and the attendance didn't seem more, perhaps even less than what you would have seen on a normal championship attendance thing. So it doesn't feel like it's for the fans, or really with fans in that kind of mind, and calling it like day-night stuff when you're playing it literally over the solstice, which was the longest, the longest days of the year. You're not going to get that kind of twilight dew or that kind of effect that actually might be one of those added challenges. And equally, you kind of look at the lineups and think, well, the exception of maybe Balance and Pujara from the Yorkshire team, who's going to be in with a shout of playing it internationally. And then for us, obviously, Vince also, it's not also necessarily Northeast, maybe in the future, Stain possibly for South Africa, but not for that many more years. So, yeah, what is there from learning about it? And most of it's interesting as well. We're going off into all kinds of tangents now, but I didn't realise that the Division 1 pink ball stuff was a different ball from the Division 2 pink ball, and the Division 1 games pretty much all turned out into really long, drawn out draws. And look at the Middlesex game and a few others. There's wickets flying around all over the place. So I don't know what they're doing with these balls, but somebody needs to have a look at them.
Yeah, I mean, they were showing pictures of it after 80 overs that was tweeted out, and it just lost its colour. It's very soft. Yeah, it's just not a good advert for the game. And even if it's played somewhere like the Lords or the Oval, where fair enough, you've got a lot of people passing by, I can't see it drawing in the crowds there either. So I would I can tolerate one game like that, but maybe played slightly earlier or later in the season, and maybe till not as late at night. I think that would be the way. Or we use a pink ball perhaps in September, which allows you to get more play in because you can have the floodlights on. Maybe something like that might be acceptable, but it's a thumbs down from me. But anyway, we got a draw against Yorkshire, which I think, whilst they're one of the teams we want to beat because they're down there with us, it was pleasing not to lose, and it was good just to overcome the previous week's defeat against Surrey.
Yeah, and we got some batting points. I mean, we've picked up batting points for the year, but to actually set a 450 first innings score was kind of refreshing, actually. I mean, the pace at which we scored it maybe took the chance of winning maybe out of the game, and we similar kind of thing in the Lancashire match. Actually, while we made it up to 450, it wasn't necessarily at such a pace that we were going to really push for the win.
I watched a lot of the live stream from Lancashire, and it just seemed like for both sides nothing was really particularly happening. And people might say, oh, they should have been trying to force a result on the last day, but I think it would have been very, very difficult indeed to take 20 wickets on that. Neither side, because they're both down towards the foot of the table, don't really want to lose at this stage. So I think it was good for Hampshire that we spent that fourth day at Old Trafford just batting, and it just kept as many of the people who were going to feature at Lords on the Saturday off the field.
Yeah, and it was, a good little landmark for Joe Wesley as well, his first championship century as well. So, where he's been not quite underperforming, but still just establishing his kind of case for settling into the first team, and that opener's spot, that hopefully knowing that he can do it and has shown it, maybe in favourable conditions as well, perhaps you'd say, but that's setting us up for a bit more long-term positivity.
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is that when we last spoke, Hampshire had lost inside 3 days against Surrey, and we were in the bottom two. We've now, thanks to these couple of draws, picked up a bit of ground. We're now up to fifth. By no means out of the woods yet, but it means that whilst the 6 week break, in the championship, that at least when we resume, we'll be, relatively safe. I think there is actually a round of games somewhere in the middle, but we're not involved with those, so we might drop down slightly again. But with half the games still to play, we're very much in with a shout of staying up again.
Yeah, in that next round of games, realistically, just having a quick glance at the table, you would suspect, even if they don't win, Yorkshire are going to pick up enough bonus points to just overlap us. So we'll go into the next round of games probably sixth, at a guess. But still, the table looks like it's slightly dividing into two at this point. You've got Surrey Surrey, they're not running away with it, but they're in a very strong position at the moment, not too far behind Somerset and Essex, below them. And I think going down is probably going to be two of us: Lancashire, Yorkshire, Worcestershire. So, well, we will see, but we've got a lot of T20 before all of that happens. So, we will see. Right, I think that's probably it from me as well.
Yeah, most certainly that's it from me. Yeah, please check us out, share our podcast with your friends or with any Hampshire supporters because we think that they'll be particularly interested to hear back about the Lord's final. And as always, we look forward to interacting with you on Twitter at Hantsfanpodcast.
Yep, right. Thanks for listening, and it's good night from me.
Good night.